program is suitable for general viewing.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It is 15 minutes past 8 p.m. the 21st of September. My name is Nadia Osman and I'm standing in for Faisal Qasim. The topic of discussion today is El Nino preparedness. How prepared are we for what we've been warned from the beginning of the year? We're talking proactive measures that are crucial in safeguarding lives and livelihoods. Today joining me in studio is none other than Mr. Suleiman Musa, the project coordinator of Al Khair Foundation, who's going to be talking to us about Al Khair's initiatives and their impacts on communities that are most likely to be affected with the El Nino. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Nadia.
How are you this fine evening, rather?
I'm fine, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. And just to talk about the topic for today, it's all about El Nino. And I know this is something that we've been hearing time and time again, either on the TV, on news, on the newspaper. The meteorological department has been warning Kenyans to prepare themselves. And for anyone who's listening, I want us to start the conversation with, what do we know about the El Nino? What exactly is it?
Thank you so much, Nadia, for inviting me in this show at HorizonTV.
Yes.
On behalf of Al Khair Foundation.
Yes.
We are glad to partner with HorizonTV just to create awareness and to sensitize the public.
Yes.
On the predicted El Nino.
Yes.
And as we know, this is a weather phenomena that happens in 2 to 7 years. And this is not the first time that the El Nino is happening.
It is true.
It has happened before.
Yes, and just to look at the history of Kenya, and as we were discussing it before we went on air, you could probably take us through that. And how many years or when did Kenya last experience El Nino?
Okay, El Nino has happened, and the strongest El Nino that has really hit hard in Kenya is in 1997, 1998.
Yes.
And during this time, Kenya experienced landslides, floods, displacement of thousands of people, and damaging infrastructure generally.
Yes.
So this is the coming El Nino is predicted to and equated to the 1997, 1998. That is how serious the situation is on the ground. And apart from 1997 and 1998, also in 2006, 2007, El Nino also happened. In 2015, 2016, also El Nino happened. And also in 2009 and 2010. And during this period, according to Office of Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, or OCHA, which is a United Nations agency, there was a lot of displacement in some areas.
Yes.
For instance, in Turkana, we had over 5,000 displacement during that period. In areas of Lamu, we had between 2,000 and 5,000 displacements. In areas of Tana River, also above 5,000. So basically, this is a bit of history of El Nino in Kenya, and this needs us as Kenyans, us as communities, us as organization, to really be alert to the to be alert on the alerts that are given by Kenya Meteorological Department and also World Meteorological Organization. Yes.
And just to speak about if what they're saying is what Kenya can be experiencing this year would probably be similar to what it experienced in 1997, which was very, very bad. And that clearly tells us that if Kenyans have been warned, is it a matter of we don't listen? Is it a matter of last-minute preparedness? And also, other than being given early warnings, the Meteorological Department came out and said we're expecting it from this time to this time. Let's talk about the time frame for the El Nino rains.
What I can say about alerts and preparedness.
Yes.
it's really a challenge for us as Kenyans, let me say, for us as Kenyans or human beings. Sometimes we believe and we go by the saying, seeing is believing.
Yes.
So the last minute, it's true. Most of the people are likely to rush during the last minute, but this is a call to all of us, to everyone, to take the precautions seriously, so that and make it a habit to be more proactive rather than being reactive. Even in our religion of Islam, we are told to prepare. Yeah, you know, Allah has given people knowledge about the weather patterns. Yes, has given them knowledge on predictions and weather forecast. So, of course, it is good to listen and prepare well. Yes. So, about the other thing that you've talked about the timelines, what you are saying, this El Nino is likely to come with the short rain period, that is the months of October, November and December, and extending to early January. Yes. So those are the timelines. Specifically, the prediction is around the second week of, from the second week of October, that is next month. That is when the El Nino is likely to come. And of course, in November, a climax to be in November. Yeah. Yes, and just to talk about, obviously, as much as we know about the time frames that the meteorological department has said, and you've mentioned, we're also seeing there are areas that we constantly see on the TV. Rather than El Nino rainfall, we've seen areas in Kenya where just a little rain causes a little havoc. So you can imagine what the El Nino can cause. And let's talk about those areas in Kenya that probably we should be looking out for. Nadia, the El Nino phenomena is a prediction. Yes. Of course, Allah knows best. Yes. About tomorrow, what will happen. But according to the alerts you are getting, the specific areas or counties that have been mentioned by the Kenya Meteorological Department, and that is what we depend on as our guidance for preparedness and response for the El Nino. And parts of the counties that have been mentioned includes in the coastal areas, Mombasa, Tana River, Kilifi, Lamu and Kwale. Yes. Also we have the northwestern counties, that is Turkana and Samburu. Of course, parts of Rift Valley, Nyandarua, Nyeri, Kirinyaga, Nairobi, Kitui, Makueni, and northeastern parts of Mandera, Wajir, and specifically Wajir and Mandera also are likely to receive higher rainfall, more than average, above average. That is according to the Kenya Meteorological Department. So those are some of the areas that are at a high risk of El Nino phenomena. Of course, other areas will have above average rainfall. Others will have lower rainfall. So this is the predictions as per now. Very, very true. And I love how you've also mentioned, as much as we are being reminded, this can not happen, because at the end of the day, it's always Allah who is able to clearly show us. Let's talk about preparedness efforts. And I know as Al Khair Foundation, you will be on the ground. The organization will be assisting people on the ground. Before anything happens, I'm sure that Al Khair Foundation probably has initiatives where they are preparing different people, or probably coming together with resources, probably going on the ground and educating the masses. What have you been doing as Al Khair Foundation? Alhamdulillah, our mandate as Al Khair Foundation, the core mandate for Al Khair Foundation, apart from other projects and programs we are involved in, is emergency response, such as disasters such as El Nino, floods, and other disasters including droughts. So as Al Khair Foundation, we are alert to the predictions that have been put forth, and the initiative we have started already. We started by mobilizing partner organizations just to come together and discuss about this and see how well we are prepared for this, because we believe that there is no one organization that can say, I'll deal with the disaster alone. So we are partnering with other Muslim and government also organizations to come up with a preparedness plan. We have done several meetings, physical and also virtual meetings with organizations since last month. We are creating awareness to the communities and where we have reached in Kenya, just to sensitize the public and the community to build their capacities also in terms of El Nino preparedness. And also on top of that, as an organization, within our internal arrangements and system, of course with support from the UK office, which is our headquarter, we have made plans to respond. Because when El Nino happens, of course we expect impacts on food, food security, water, health sector. So those are the areas that as Al Khair we are prepared to respond to. But of course we will be guided by the national strategies, plans, of course in a coordinated manner, so that we do not duplicate the efforts. I believe there are other organizations also that will like to respond to such emergencies. So in our meetings and in our preparedness, we are looking at working in clusters, whereby we are looking at organizations who are working in various regions, as we've mentioned. We are also looking at a cluster in a way that we are looking at organizations and their strength in different sectors. There are other organizations that are strong in health sector, others are doing WASH, others are doing food security. So we want to work in clusters so that we coordinate and also we avoid duplication and of course leveraging on resources.
Very
so
true.
That is what as Al Khair we are prepared to do.
Yes, you've mentioned something while you were speaking about the impact of the El Nino. You've talked about maybe it's the healthcare system that will be affected. We've seen in different catastrophes caused probably by heavy rainfall. We've seen the agriculture sector, we've seen infrastructure, and we've seen probably health scares that have been brought about by probably heavy rainfall. What are we going to expect if it comes worse comes to worse? How is it going to affect the country?
Of course, to begin with, when El Nino happens, of course, most likely in Kenya, it comes with floods, landslides, mudslides, flood flush. So this means, of course, there's disruption in the day-to-day activity for families and communities that will be affected. And of course, when responding, we are looking at the impact such as food insecurity. A household will lack food. We are looking at contamination of water. We are looking, when you look at agriculture, we are looking at soil erosion. We are looking at destruction of crops. We are looking at so food security will be a key priority for us. When we look at the infrastructure, we are looking at the communication. We are looking at destruction in terms of road system. We are looking at the drainage system. We are looking at so all these are impact and effects for El Nino, and we should be prepared, well prepared in advance to deal with all these impacts, including in health sector. Of course, we are looking at water contamination. And that's where we ask the question as Al Khair Foundation. I know you probably looked at this and obviously said these are some of the issues that can arise from the El Nino rainfall. You've said if it's the food security, I know as Al Khair Foundation there are different projects that you have planned in advance to be able to assist the people on the ground. If you could probably tell us some of them when we talk about probably health scares like water contamination. Unfortunately, when it's rained a lot, that's where you expect there to be a lot of water, but sadly that's where you realize that it might be heavy rainfall with a lot of water, but that's where I realize the people don't even have water to drink itself. And probably you could tell us more about that. Very true, Nadia. As I've said, our response will highly depend on our support from our head office, and of course, when need be, we will also resource mobilize locally and also leverage on other organization resources. But as Khair, we are looking at provision of food packages to families in the most hit areas, which we have already mapped out some counties, mostly the coastal counties also, because we have a presence there and we closely work with those counties. We are also looking at provision of clean water, provision of water jerrycans, provision of water tablets to purify the water, and also in partnership with other organizations, of course, if resources allows, we will go to non-food items, of course, including also shelter and so forth. So those are preparations that are already in line, and we hope for the best. We hope for the best.
Inshallah. And when we talk about the rainfall, just to understand the culture within us Kenyans, what's usually the issue? Because we can be warned in advance. As you've mentioned, probably we wait to see to believe it. But as Al Khair Foundation, how important is it that Kenyans are aware of the situation? How important is it that the media probably shares this information? How important is it that on the ground, as much as we are preparing for the worst, we also remind ourselves that in times of such situations, it's very important that we work together, hand in hand, as Al Khair Foundation and the communities that you probably would be assisting?
I will say, Nadia, it's very, very important for communities to be aware and alert to these precautions, and awareness raising and sensitization is a responsibility of all organizations, of all community leaders, of all sectors, including the mosques, the imams, the religious institutions, the barazas, the media like yourself, creating awareness just to alert and keep in mind. Human beings like to be reminded.
Very, very true.
We are human beings and we forget.
It's very, very true. And that, just to be, I'd love to stop you there and just go on a short break. But as you've mentioned, you've talked about the roles of probably leaders, community leaders. You've talked about the roles of probably the media. I want us to come back with that. I want us to talk about how individuals, how important it is for local communities and leaders to play a supporting role to Kenyans, especially now. And I think I'll stop you there, and that will bring us to the first break of today's show. So do not go anywhere. We're coming back with more of the conversation.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
The best gift you can give to your kids is education. Baitul Hikmah Integrated Group of Schools is a faith-based international school that offers an Islamic integrated British curriculum. We provide quality education to our students while instilling Islamic morals, values and practices. Our curriculum includes Cambridge IGCSE, digital learning, modern languages and Islamic integrated studies steered by a qualified and experienced TSC registered tutors. leaders. We offer a secure and serene learning environment that promotes development of knowledge, skills, understanding, confidence, and creativity to our students. To strike a balance, we have an ample playground for the children and strong extracurricular activities. The school has a mosque and madrasa for the students' spiritual upliftment. We're located at 6 Parklands Avenue off City Park Drive, opposite Regal Plaza on Tazza Lane. September 2023 intake is ongoing. For more information, contact us on 0732 854 647, info@baitulhikmah.sc.ke or www.baitulhikmah.sc.ke. Baitul Hikmah, a home of wisdom.
Verse of the day.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وعباد الرحمن الذين يمشون على الأرض هونا وإذا خاطبهم الجاهلون قالوا سلاما والذين يبيتون لربهم سجدا وقياما والذين يقولون ربنا اصرف عنا عذاب جهنم إن عذابها كان غراما إنها ساءت مستقرا ومقاما.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much for staying with us here on Horizon TV. And the topic of discussion today on the live real talk is El Nino Preparedness. How prepared are we after being given warnings from the beginning of the year? And also joining me in studio today is Mr. Suleiman Musa, the project coordinator of Al Khair Foundation. And we've been discussing, Mr. Suleiman, about how Al Khair will be taking part and how we've talked about the patterns, we've talked about what people should be expecting. And before we went on our break, we were talking about how important it is for local leaders to work together in supporting the efforts in Kenya.
Yes, Nadia, and the biggest and the heavy responsibility, of course, starts from the government.
Yes.
The government should prepare well in advance, and we're talking about the national and also the county government.
Yes.
In their various ministries and departments. And of course, the local leaders, the local communities also have responsibilities in information dissemination, creating awareness at local level. At the lowest level, you know, when we talk about such disasters, charity begins at home.
It's true.
We should start from the neighborhood. What resources are we able, at our level, what resources are we able to pull together as communities, as mosques, as associations, as community organizations? What resources can we be able to pull together in preparation for this?
Yes.
In our communities, we have the vulnerable groups. We have the elderly. We have the sick.
Yes.
We have the people living with disability. We have all these categories of people. We have children, yeah. And in fact, in the impacts and effects, some of the people or which are highly affected by El Nino or any disaster are the women and the children.
It's true.
So we expect also disruption in schools. Sometimes these rains can happen when children are in school.
Yes.
So we need an evacuation plan. So how well the community is prepared is very, very important. So those are some of the roles that the community can actually play. Also, volunteering, having a local rescue team, of course, working with organizations that will be on the ground.
Yes.
So these are some of the roles that the communities can play. Of course, the Meteorological Department, Kenya Meteorological Department is playing its role very well in terms of alerts, in terms of current information, which is very, very important, of course, for planning and preparedness for response. Yeah.
And I love how you've mentioned a very important factor, which is education is also one of the sectors that is affected when such natural calamities happen. We've seen even sometimes schools are made into refuge centers, which means there will be no learning that will be taking place. And let's talk about now the challenges probably Al Khair Foundation has probably been facing while preparing people for this El Nino rains.
Okay, we can talk about the challenges that we are facing now and the challenges that we are foreseeing to face when the El Nino comes. Of course, as we've said, this is an uncertainty. We don't know the impact and how the rains will be. So we foresee challenges in terms of infrastructure. The way we said, there will be infrastructure challenges. So as much as we are prepared with our provisions for the families and the vulnerable, sometimes we might not be able to reach those interior areas because of the infrastructure challenges. So also another challenge that we are seeing in communities, as much as we create this awareness, as much as we sensitize, still we have you know, in communities, different people respond differently to these alerts. Some people are fast innovators and they listen and react very fast. Some people are in the middle, looking at how it takes time to them, and some people will still remain even when the rains come. It will find them the same place, and that is the nature of human beings. So we are looking at a situation whereby we are trying to sensitize, and you know, there are people who know that this is a flood-prone area, and we need to take this precaution, and we need to do one or two things in terms of our safety and security during the situation. So those are some of the challenges that, of course, we are foreseeing. Another thing is, as much as we are prepared, we are limited also as an organization in terms of resources and resources constraints. So this is also a challenge, and we call upon other like-minded organizations, humanitarian organizations, and also the government to come in handy to support the initiative, so that we mitigate these challenges, we save lives and also livelihoods.
Yes, and I'm just looking on, scrolling on X, which was formerly Twitter, and usually as much as we talk about preparedness, we also want to talk about safety. We've seen sometimes, probably in flood areas, probably somebody trying to cross probably a bridge, and we've seen people's vehicles carried away. We've seen people also carried away in probably in such situations. It's also very important to remind people to also stay safe, and probably if it's indoors, to stay indoors, but not to probably go and put themselves in very treacherous terrains. And it's also sometimes funny videos I usually share, just to lighten the moment, where you find somebody trying to walk somewhere and they probably get into a manhole or a porthole or something, and it's flooded. So sometimes it's also nice to always remind ourselves, like in this situation, to also remind ourselves to stay safe. And let's talk about collaboration with the communities as well as Al Khair Foundation. How are you going to collaborate with local communities? Are you looking for volunteers? Are you encouraging people to probably come and volunteer for you? What's the situation like?
Yeah, just before going to collaboration, it's true.
Yes.
There are very simple safety precautions that we can say we need to think about. Yeah, probably you driving across the river or where there is a lot of flood, or walking, you know, in a household. We tell people to just, in terms of preparedness, look at, of course, we expect a thunderstorm, we expect, so in terms of trees around you, you look at hazards. You just clear the trees that are the branches that you see. This might cause hazard. It's very, very also important to get the contacts also at this particular moment, to have the contacts of the rescue, nearest rescue center, just to stay in touch with family and friends, just in case of anything. Of course, coming to your question in terms of collaboration, collaboration is key because of building synergy, because of capitalizing on resources and actually having higher impact with the few resources that we have, so that we do not waste resources. So of course we look at in-kind donations. We're looking at cash donations. We'll be looking at volunteers, as you said, so that we are able to respond to this effectively. So, of course, we'll be informed periodically with current information from the meteorological department, so that we get the actual data and statistics on the ground, so that we're able to efficiently and effectively respond to this disaster.
Yes, and just to lighten the moment, it reminds me of back when we had probably heavy rainfalls, and we'd see areas in Nairobi that are flooded to a point where people would make jokes and say, instead of having cars, I think we need to invest in boats. And that clearly, as much as it makes us laugh, it also reminds us that the drainage system in Nairobi needs some work. And as much as we've seen probably areas like Eastleigh being cleaned up, and we've seen the county government probably putting people on the ground and doing cleaning of probably the drainage system, it's very important as Kenyans as well to remind ourselves in such moments, like, these are things whereby we can also avoid throwing trash on the road and leading to blocking the drainage systems. And it's funny just to imagine what would have happened, you know. And it's not something that we want, but it's just when you know, like Kenyans, we find humor in everything these days. But just to remember how that image just came back into my mind. I don't know where it was in Nairobi, where it was so flooded and people started talking about swimming in boats.
That's very true, and it happens even in short rains. Like today, it rained in Nairobi. It's already you can see water in the street. So that means the drainage system, as you said. We don't want to blame anyone. We don't want to say it's government. We want to say it's who and who. But that is the real situation on the ground.
Yes, and just to talk about also Al Khair Foundation, we've seen our neighbors, Morocco, they've gone through a very devastating earthquake. We've seen Libya that has gone through also a very, very bad and sad flooding, where lots of people have lost their lives. What do you say about this as a representative of Al Khair Foundation?
We first of all pray to Allah. May Allah console the families, and may Allah give Jannat Firdaus for all our brothers and sisters who have passed away due to these catastrophes. I would like to say that Al Khair Foundation is on the ground, just trying to save lives, to provide humanitarian support, and this is actually, we need to do a lot of dua and istighfar to Allah, because this is something that you can imagine in a desert. in a desert having a flood in such magnitude. So we pray to Allah to restore the situation across the world, and also we are doing our best to provide humanitarian support for our brothers and sisters in those countries.
Very well put. And just to talk about, as you've mentioned, Al-Khair Foundation is on the ground in those affected countries. Could you give us an insight of some of the ways you are assisting the people either in Morocco and Libya?
Yeah, we provide, of course, we respond to the needs. We do food packages. We respond in terms of healthcare. So those are some of the interventions that Al-Khair Foundation is doing, of course, and many more other ways that the team on the ground is undertaking at the moment.
MashaAllah. That actually really is very impressive that you are assisting beyond borders.
Yes.
Just to talk about also Al-Khair Foundation, just to give whoever's listening an idea of what Al-Khair Foundation is all about, you could probably tell us more about Al-Khair and the different projects that it does.
MashaAllah. Al-Khair is a registered headquarter in UK. And Alhamdulillah, the Africa office is in Kenya. We are glad to have it in Nairobi. Al-Khair Foundation Kenya was registered in 2012. Alhamdulillah, since then we have been able to reach communities and impacting lives through different thematic program areas, such as healthcare, such as water and sanitation, such as Kurbani and seasonal programs like Ramadan food packs for the vulnerable families. We also have interventions in education, of course, shelter, and so forth. So it's a holistic approach. We use a holistic approach, but our core mandate, as I've said in the beginning, is emergency response. So we've touched lives of communities in Kenya. We've drilled boreholes. We have done shallow wells for communities where there are no waters. If you take a moment, Nadia, to visit the areas where Al-Khair is working on, last week we were in Lamu to commission a project in Maziwani, and you can't imagine the situation in Kenya. Probably the people in Nairobi are way better, but when you go to the grounds, you go to Lamu, you go to Tana River, you go to parts of Northeastern, even the place, the shelter that the communities have is it's really we pray to Allah, may Allah change the situation. Because you can imagine if now where these people are living, when the disasters such as El Nino flooding comes, I don't know how will be the situation. So this is what Al-Khair is doing, of course, with the support of Allah and our donors. We are able to touch lives and to change communities. And we encourage all the viewers who are seeing or watching this program to work hand in hand. We'll give our contacts. Inshallah, we are located at Westlands Westcom building, and we are open for partnership, for collaboration, for working together with even corporates, because most of our projects are supported by individuals, most of our projects are supported by families, most of our projects are supported by corporates. And inshallah, if you have your sadaqah to Jariyah, you want to give sadaqah on behalf of your departed family member, Al-Khair is best placed to reach out to these local communities, the vulnerable, most vulnerable communities in Kenya. So that is basically what Al-Khair is doing at the moment.
Allahumma barik. And just also for anyone who you've mentioned wants to donate, what about when it reaches a point where people need your assistance? How do they reach out to Al-Khair Foundation? Probably in case of any emergencies, as you've mentioned, disaster response is one of the things that Al-Khair Foundation does. How can they reach out to you guys?
Yeah, I've said Al-Khair Foundation is at Westcom Point building. second floor.
I think I'd really love you to look at the camera and probably tell them.
Tell the people.
I think this is your camera. Yes.
Yes. We also are available online. You can send us an email, kenya@alkhair.org. We also present in all social media, in social media, in Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Al Khair Foundation Kenya. You'll find us on these platforms, and also you can pay us a visit in our offices.
Very, very well put. And that, I think, brings us to wind up our show, unless there's anything you'd love to add on before we call it a day.
My message to our viewers today is we anticipate that Allah will protect us. We should not fear, but at the same time, you should be ready and prepared for the alerts. So this is a call to all stakeholders to work together in a collaborative manner so that we're able to save the lives of our people. Shukran.
Alhamdulillah. And that, I think, brings us to the end of today's discussion. It's been very, very nice to not just discuss about what is expected, but to also tell, to get your point of view, because you've been on the ground, as you've mentioned. You've seen some of the situations that certain communities live in and how it would really affect them. And I love how you've not just talked about Al Khair Foundation as assisting people in Kenya. You've also touched on Morocco and Libya, where Al Khair Foundation is also on the ground assisting them. And that brings us to the end of our discussion today. Thank you so much, Mr. Suleiman, for teaching us or educating us on how we can prepare ourselves for the incoming El Nino. And also it's very nice that you spared your time. And also thank you so much to Al Khair Foundation for accepting our invitation to talk on such important topic. And I guess that brings us to the end of our show today. Once again, my name is Nadia Osman, and I was standing in for Faisal Qasim, who hopefully, inshallah, next Thursday will be with you. And that reminds me, Friday tomorrow, 8 a.m., I am still there with you on the Muslim Insight at 8 a.m. So inshallah, see you tomorrow rather. Until then, ma'as salam.